what are you particularly asking yourself? And I said, well, if I have to sum it up, I would say, now this part of the podcast might get a little bit too philosophical.
How do you deal with competition? What makes your company number one?
We don't concentrate on what other people are doing. I think it's a combination of being a challenge and at the same time something that I enjoy a lot. You have, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the ruler of Dubai, talking about how he wants to be number one.
Yeah.
And that kind of trickled down on everyone else. I realized that there's nothing more powerful than letting your own people take ownership of things. It becomes so liberating after a few years. We say, it's fine that I'm not involved in everything. We're fortunate to be in a place where the country is booming economically and we are having this influx of investors and business owners. And this is when I fell in love with the city and I said, this is where I want to live.
That's what brought you here.
Yeah.
So without further ado, I'm Radin Jerome. Wherever you are in your life or wherever you're going, whether financially, spiritually, or for your health, I hope you're on your way. Now let's get into it.
Lorenzo.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
You're a CEO, a vice president, executive director, and founder. And you've done all these roles within different corporations. If I was to go as far as back as founding Leaders Without Borders, executive director of World Business Report, Envision Films, vice president of Art and Capital and Viping, CEO of Leaders Middle East, CEO of One World Communications, and currently CEO of Creative Zone.
There's a lot of titles.
There's a lot of titles. I was going to try to get all that out in one breath, but I would die.
No, don't blame me for that. Yeah.
Now, talk to me about Creative Zone first, because Creative Zone is the Dubai's largest business setup advisory firm, 180 employees.
Correct.
50,000 new companies set up since inception.
Yes.
Well, over, and averaging 150 per month.
Right.
There's clearly a lot of competition in this space.
Yeah.
Especially in Dubai.
Yeah.
How have you been able to maintain the number one spot?
Look, we were established about 13 years ago now. We were one of the leaders in this industry. Little did we know that Dubai was going to grow to what it has become today. We're fortunate to be in a place where, the country is booming economically and we are having this influx of investors and business owners, startups and entrepreneurs wanting to come and take a piece of the pie in what's happening in Dubai. Dubai has made it very easy for investors to come. The setup process is quite convenient. The conditions are very favorable, a very low tax regime, no income tax for individuals. The quality of life, as you're familiar and you're aware of, it's quite unique. So there's a lot of draw into why Dubai and why the UAE. So to your question is, our main differentiator is customer service. We really do everything we can to help entrepreneurs and to help startups coming into the country and investors with everything that they might need when starting a new life here in the country.
So, there's a lot of things that draw people to Dubai. I'm in Dubai, but what makes your company, how do you deal with competition? What makes your company number one?
To be honest, we don't really look around too much. We don't concentrate on what other people are doing, and we just have a pure joy of wanting to help people with everything that we do. And the reason for that, for example, is that we created about 16 different units around company formation. Our slogan says, because business setup is just the beginning. Because it's exactly like that. When you set up a company, just getting the trade license is just the beginning of things. Around that, you need help with compliance related issues, tax and accounting, how do you open your bank account, where are you going to live, real estate, support that you need for residential, for you and your family, office space that you may need. We help you with media and marketing solutions. We have a full team of 17 people in marketing that will help you with setting up a website, with generating leads, with everything. So it's really centered about everything that an investor needs when starting in the country.
So it's basically a one-stop shop.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like to me, being number one is just not worrying about what anybody else is doing.
I think you couldn't have put it better than that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the motivation that brought you to Dubai?
There's actually quite an interesting story behind that. Back around 2005 and 6, I owned a media company, one of the ones that you mentioned. It was called One World Communications. And we were specialized in supporting governments in branding themselves to attract investors for tourism, for real estate development projects, and so much more. And I remember going to Tanzania, and I had a meeting with back then the president of Tanzania.
Wow.
It was a gentleman called Kikwete, and he said, at that time I was representing an American TV station, ABC Television, and they said, yeah, American TV is good, but we're very interested in what's happening in this part of the world, Dubai, and this was 2005, 6. And they said, why don't you go over there and have a look for us and see if you can sort of link us up there with investors and with the media. So that's when I first came to Dubai, 2006, with this assignment from the government of Tanzania to say, can you come and have a look at what's happening here? And we organized back then the first Tanzania UAE Investors Forum. And this is when I fell in love with the city, and I said, this is where I want to live.
That's what brought you here.
Yeah.
I actually watched one of your films.
Okay.
Yeah, Recipes. What was it? Recipes for a Better World.
You're right. There was some presidents there. There was the president of Zambia, the first president of Zambia, a guy called Kenneth Kaunda. There were people from the Nelson Mandela Foundation.
Yeah. You have a very strong ties to Africa, I find.
Indeed. And I feel I still owe a lot back to Africa. Yeah. Africa gave me a lot, and every time I have an opportunity to do something with Africa, business with Africa, I'm really into it. I've done a lot of work around Africa. I spent about 10 years of my life there, and I fell in love with this continent, with the people, with the business opportunities, with the entrepreneurial spirit of people over there. So definitely,
You did a lot of podcasts with South African entrepreneurs. I watched that.
Yeah, Vusi Tembekwayo.
That's right. Yeah,
that's a big guy. That's someone. If you can ever get your hands on, you'll enjoy it.
Very smart guy.
Real entrepreneur, Dragon's Den guy from South Africa. Yeah. Incredible guy. Yeah.
Very smart, very well spoken.
Very.
Especially from where he came from, rags to riches.
Absolutely.
Nobody taught him how to speak like that. Nobody taught him that. It's
real
just
natural.
Yeah, it's just who he is.
Real natural.
I mean, we talked about why Dubai is so attractive to foreign investment. I mean, it's just such a crazy place. You've got man-made islands.
Yeah.
We've got the Atlantis the Royal that recently opened up. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
And they're building the Brigati building now, and it's just they're really, if I was to compare some of the other cities I've lived in the world, there's always hurdles and there's always reasons why not to do things. While here, construction happens 24 hours. They just get it done. Yeah. I think from the city I'm from in Australia, we're still extending our freeway. It's been 5 years. Yeah. Here it's done the next day. Yeah. So it's a city that anything can get done. And they don't want to hear excuses,
No, absolutely, and I think this was born out of, the leadership of this country. You have, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the ruler of Dubai. I remember watching an interview he did 15 years ago with CNN, talking about how he just wants to be number one. Yeah. And that kind of trickled down on everyone else. I mean, you get people, even entrepreneurs, you see the ambition and the aspirations of people just in general. I mean, any entrepreneur, they have that feel of wanting to just do everything to succeed.
That was a good answer. What would you like?
Just a cappuccino.
3 large cappuccinos with 2 sugars each one.
Okay, sure, sir.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Thank you, sir.
I've seen that interview.
Yeah.
And it's such an old interview. And
right.
And they said, why do you want to be number one? And he said, why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
But
why
that's the spirit of everyone.
Yeah.
You get people here, and they start from the ground.
Yeah.
But they have this thing of saying, I'm going to build the biggest thing ever possible. And I think that's what you don't get to see everywhere else, when you travel and see the cities.
I've read his book, and he said he wants to attract the top 20% of the world.
Wow.
And he really has.
Yeah.
There's a sense of pride here with the Emirati people, where if they're designing a building, or if they're doing anything, they have a sense of, we're Emirati. We have to do it better. We can't be a standard normal building.
So
it
true.
has to be artistic. It has to be the tallest. You're Emirati. You have to do it that way. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Thank you. If you like this video, consider subscribing. We do weekly podcasts with experts in every industry to help you find direction and guide you on your way. Now let's get back into it.
The one thing that I remember first coming here, and the easiness of reaching people. I mean, you will write a letter to ministers. You're talking about CEOs of chambers of commerce and stuff. The willingness of just wanting to meet with you and say, listen. And as long as you had something that adds value to the story of the UAE, they will just find any way possible of helping you and supporting you to make it happen. I'm going to say that still is there. I mean, now they're having to control it a little bit. They can't be saying yes to everything that comes. But I'm telling you, 10 years ago, no matter what you were saying, the answer was yes, go ahead. Wow. Yes, do it. What do you need? Then anything that you wanted to start. Now, poor guys, the guys at the top, they're having to control a little bit the gate. So you have gatekeepers to go through.
Of course.
As long as you have something that adds value, it's just
Of course. I mean, now that if that was still the case, they would have a line outside the office.
People,
a flood of people.
Yeah.
But I lived in New York, and it's very closed door. Everybody is tight-knit, and if you didn't grow up with them, they're not going to connect with you and do business.
Yeah.
And you're a very well-known CEO here. You're one of the most. Yeah, you're one of the most known. I mean, you're on Emirates NBD ads.
Ah, correct. Yeah.
Right. So you're one of them.
The enabler.
The enabler.
Yeah. I was positioned as the enabler.
That's right. Yeah. So you're one of the most well-known CEOs in Dubai, and just to be able to sit down with you and have a coffee and have and do a podcast, if I was to get the same caliber of person of yourself in New York, it wouldn't happen.
Yeah, true. The access and is something very special here.
Yeah. Everyone's reachable. Everyone's touchable, and everyone's willing to help.
Yeah, just for one reason, we're all coming from elsewhere. We're all expats, and we're all here, trying to help one another, to meet one another, and see where we can be of help in one way or another.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest challenges that you face being a CEO?
Oh, that's a good question. I haven't been thinking of such a. I think it's a combination of being a challenge and at the same time something that I enjoy a lot, and it becomes challenging, which is really, having an open door policy and being able to meet with everyone around you and your team, especially in supporting everyone. And the challenge part comes from the fact that you have a limited time during the day, but I would say the biggest challenge when running an organization like Creative Zone is that how do you divide your time in being able that you are in as many places as you can, and really supporting and impacting the people around you. I've really enjoyed so much in these 4 years in seeing people grow and empowering them to become what they are. I've realized that there's nothing more powerful than letting your own people take ownership of things and really suddenly be managing certain projects and things. And at the beginning, one makes the mistake of feeling, I need to be involved in everything and I need to be the one driving all of these things. It becomes so liberating after a few years. We say, it's fine that I'm not involved in everything. And you let other people run things. And then seeing that actually it becomes successful. And then you are like, what, this really makes sense. So suddenly you realize that you start putting more time in that. How can you empower? How can you help other people become those leaders so that they end up, so at the end of the equation, you end up having 14, 15 projects that are running successfully instead of 4 or 5 that you can be involved in.
Yeah, I mean, delegation is very important, isn't
Absolutely.
it? You know,
Absolutely.
you only have a certain amount of time in your day. You can't do everything.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And you almost have to trust that your staff are going to do things the way you want to do it. You know, everyone has their style.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
What does a typical day look like for you as a CEO?
I usually come in the morning to the office, and I like doing my little round. I pass through all the different departments. We have a bit of an open space at the office. We have about 120 people sitting at the office downtown where we're located, and we have another 60 people offshore. We have an important team of people in different countries where we operate, and as well we have a lot of our client servicing team spread out in different time zones as well. But in the morning, I get up in the morning. My team is very kind, and they always know that they're receiving me with a nice cappuccino that I have at the office, and then I take this and I start going around. I love seeing everyone at the office. I'm very affectionate type of guy. I like sort of hugging people, giving them a little touch on the back, a pat on the back, and I feel that helps. That helps creating that connection with people. So I go around the office and then I start looking at my calendar and say, what do we have in store for the day? Usually I already have 4 or 5 set weekly meetings to do with, we have teams related to client relations issues. And that shows again our commitment to client relations. We have twice a week a client relations issues call where we involve about 10 people, and this includes the chairman of the company, where he takes twice a week an hour to listen to clients' issues, problems, and how we can solve them and how we can support those issues. But I have weekly similar calls related to sales, to marketing, to operations, to finance, to IT. So spread out for 8 to 10 different departments. That's sort of half of my calendar, and the other half is related to meeting new people, marketing related activations, the media engagements like this that we enjoy a lot. It's very important to be out there as well, especially in the type of business that we're in.
So yourself and the chairman, you're still very hands-on with any issues that come up?
Absolutely. The company is actually owned by 3 shareholders. All 3 of them are very much part of the day-to-day of running the business. And they've divided themselves in such a smart way. Like, one of them is more focused on the client relations and operations side of it. The other one is a financial guru, and he'll look at an Excel sheet and he'll tell you what's the problem with it within even spending 3 seconds on it. Wow. And the other one is more into the sales and marketing. And I'm sort of the connector between all of it. And I have to say, I've been very fortunate that they've give me the freedom to make a lot of the calls and everything. And they've become so active themselves with so many other businesses that they own that it's a real harmonious operation and relationship that we have.
How do you stay on top of your game? Do you read books, watch podcasts? I mean, in the industry that you're in, probably world affairs, current affairs, it probably impacts your industry. Yeah.
I read a lot, but I read a lot on social media sort of channels and digital channels. I love being up to date to what's trending now, what's happening there, from anything, from silly songs that are trading, from what other people are doing to grow their business, no matter what industry they're in. I feel that in business there's always something that you can learn or you can take from someone else's sort of approach to things. So even if there is a little song that becomes trendy or something, and you can use or incorporate the little song into what you do, it shows people that you're out there, that you're modern. And that you're constantly updating. So I remember when Corona hit, we were the first company in this industry, and I can say one of the first 5 in the whole country to start with webinars. If you go back into our history of posting things, I think we must have done a webinar, I don't know, 2 weeks after Corona kicked in, and we became very famous with these webinars that we were doing, because we realized that so we're very early movers into these kind of things. So we're constantly looking out what's out there.
That's a really effective strategy.
Yeah,
Being the early movers and striking early.
absolutely.
You know, before it gets saturated.
Yeah.
And everybody else does
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
What are some of the key fundamentals that make you a great entrepreneur and leader?
You know, you were just talking about how you were setting up this restaurant with this lady that you found, and I connected with something so unique about the way that you were explaining it, and I think this is something that you see in a lot of very successful entrepreneurs. You were describing this in such a non-complicated, non-problematic, challenging way, and I said, you know, that really hit me. You described there was an opportunity, I did this, I rented the place, there was this lady, this is what we did, this is the revenue share, and I said, you know, that's it. Good entrepreneurs have a way of solving a problem, but in a non-complex, complicated matter. Entrepreneurs that start discussions by overcomplicating themselves and creating a lot of complex, and how you're trying to complicate, solve certain problems, those are not as successful as those that are finding a very easy way of solving a problem. And the way you just described that challenge that you had with the place, you presented it so in such an easy way. So good business ideas need to be very simple and very easy to explain and very easy to execute. If it becomes way too complex, something in there is not going to be as successful as this other example that we're giving.
You know, years ago I read a book, I'm forgetting the name now, I'll find it, and it said the brain seeks complexity. And it always assumes that it has to be more complex than this.
Yeah.
It has to be more complex than this. It can't be that easy.
Yeah.
But it really is that easy.
Yeah.
You know, execution, I think, is one of the key fundamentals that I associate a lot of my success to.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, not
Absolutely.
overthinking it and just doing it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So is that what you would do? What to make a great leader and CEO like yourself? You simplify things. You try to make it less complicated as possible.
There's a funny line that I remember when I first started as a CEO of Creative Zone, and we were doing this SMT meetings with senior management. And I remember starting to use this phrase, and sort of I have coined this phrase now. Every time we're, put forward with a situation, my question is, what's the fastest, easiest, cheapest, best way to go about this thing? And this is what we're always trying to look for. How can we achieve in the fastest, easiest way possible, in the most effective way? And that's the priority that we face everything on the day-to-day that comes our way. You have to have that mentality of saying, how can I make this situation that I have in the most effective and the easiest way possible? If you really start adding complications to things, then your day becomes a never-ending structure of things.
Business is already complicated enough.
Yeah.
You don't need to make it more complicated.
Even our lives.
Yeah, our lives.
I was buying something on the mall over the counter, and this guy was pushing me to subscribe to this point system, and I said, listen, I already have so many things. I don't need to add another app on my phone that I'm going to be checking whether I got points or not. Listen, I don't need more complication in my life. Yeah. I had my wife calling me, my daughter was at the dentist, there was another bill that we needed to. I don't have time for another pointing system in my phone right now.
How do you approach risk taking and decision making?
Good question. I think risk taking is linked on one sort of stage in your life. I think we all go through different stages, and you start feeling more or less comfortable with different levels of risks, and it relates to this stage in your life and the life that you are going through. It could be that you've become successful, and then you got less to lose in case that you are venturing into new things. Maybe when you have a little bit less, and the risk reward sort of equation it's not really making sense for you in terms of the possibilities of what you could be losing, which could be a lot at the beginning of your journey. So I think one must, include in this discussion the stage in the life that you're in, and for you to evaluate what could be the risk reward into something. It's really linked to the stage in your life. So depending, you ask me what could be the risk of doing something 15 years ago or now, I have another way of looking at risk.
It's changed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, when you were young, you had nothing to lose.
Exactly.
Risk at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you could, but on the other side, if you lose, it could leave you on the street. It could leave you in a way of very difficult to get out of, right? So maybe in the middle of your journey, also you become quite, conservative on the way you do things. So it's very personal, really. It's difficult to judge. I see a lot of people around me taking a lot more risks that I take. I'm quite a conservative type of individual. I like building on things on a progressive way, in an organic way. But I see a lot of people jumping into things a lot more aggressively than I do in many things in life.
I see that too. And I think it's a lot of stupidity sometimes. It's unnecessary risks that you need to, I'm like you. I like to be conservative and play the long game. Always think long term. When someone congratulates me on something, I was working on this 3 years ago. I always work 3 years in advance. Yeah. So what you see today, I was working on 3 years ago.
But I see people jumping in businesses, and they decide, I'm going to start this. They throw 20 people into this new venture, and they know that it's going to take them 2 years to make it run, and they have calculated that they're going to lose for the next 2 years, but 2.5 years later, they realize that this is starting to tick positively, and there they are, the market leader. When people maybe like you and me, we're going to start with 3 guys, and slowly, and we're not going to lose as much, but 2.5 years down the line, we're not the market leader, right? So
I understand.
It's really.
But I still prefer our mentality. I'll tell you why. Because that person that makes decisions like that will always make decisions like that, and future decisions like that he might have got lucky once. Yeah. I have friends that go from millionaire broke, and whenever he's a millionaire again, I'm just waiting for him to go broke again because he's too impulsive on his decisions. He's not thinking of the risk to reward ratio. Yeah. And also, I feel like people like that, they tend to. It's like I go to get coffee with my friend, right? He sits there, he can't relax. Look how many people are buying coffee. What do you think the rent is? How much is stuff? I'm saying, listen, this is not for you. Do your own thing. This is not your path, having a coffee shop. Yeah. So I feel those kind of people, they stretch out of their lane to do something that they're not supposed to do. Yeah. And I associate this with spirituality a little bit. I say, if you stay in your path, every opportunity that God brings for you, no man can take away from you. Yeah. But if you go out of your lane to do something that isn't meant for you, God will take away from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, you earlier were asking me about Africa and a little bit my experience there, and there was a turning point. There was a time when I was traveling a lot, and I kept on asking myself so many questions mainly about my purpose in life. Now, this part of the podcast might get a little bit too philosophical, but I'll put it out there. And I remember asking myself all these questions, and one day I was playing squash in this hotel where I was staying in Zambia, in Lusaka. And I started playing with this guy, and he says, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm making this TV program about Zambia, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, what are you doing? He says, I'm a priest. I'm like, oh, wow, interesting. He says, and I said, what are you doing? He says, no, I travel around Africa, and I'm preaching the Word of God and the Bible, and we go to churches. So interesting. Because I'm asking myself so many questions, and the guy goes, what are you particularly asking yourself? And I said, well, if I have to sum it up, I would say, what is my purpose in life? And he says, okay, give me 5 minutes. He goes up to his room, he comes back, and he brings me a book called What is the Purpose in Life? Written by him. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on here, right? So I started reading at this book. Anyhow, long story short, I discovered back then my purpose in life was to help people. I would just, with anything, it's not necessarily about money, or it's just to help people any time that you have an opportunity. And I started implementing this as my day went by, and I would meet someone, even if it's just about making someone feel good or appreciated, or getting them to smile, or if you are able to help financially someone. And I started implementing this. And I have to say, I entered into this very sort of enlightened phase of my life, and this is something that I try to implement throughout my life all the time. So if I would sum it up, it would be, how can you always be at the service of people and help whenever you can, and you'll be amazed how many other opportunities and things will come your way because of sort of this philosophy of things.
Absolutely, the karma.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you a religious man?
I'm very spiritual.
Yeah.
I wouldn't describe it religious, although I do believe in a similar concept of what the Bible and Catholicism and Christianism can offer. But I'm more of a spiritual person.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Talk to me about Startup Circle.
Right.
I mean, this leads in very perfectly to you helping people.
Indeed.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've created a platform?
It's a website at the moment, a website platform. It's out there in social media channels and stuff. We've just launched it. We're in the early stages of building partnerships and bringing people together. But the whole idea behind it is we wanted to create a space where we can, again, help entrepreneurs and support people that are in this journey with everything that they need, from company setup solutions to opening your bank account, getting support from a mentor, from a coach, getting advice from other entrepreneurs, having access to VC funds or investors or potential partners. So that's why the notion of being a circle is that we're all part of a circle, and we're all helping one another with what we need, and at the end of the day we all win, because if you might sell insurance, but there's another guy that helps people with opening bank accounts, and we're all part of helping one another. And since we announced it very subtly, it's just taking off by seeing the interest that people have in wanting to be part of such concepts.
That ties in perfectly to Creative Zone, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the reason why we're doing it, because we recognize that we want to be part of that whole ecosystem. And for us, it's not just about helping people, get the trade license to operate in the country. We want to help people with everything, and we know that if we do that and we truly help out with everything that people may need, regardless whether we make money out of it, because we don't make money if I'm recommending someone to get an insurance or choose a certain bank or anything, but I know that it will create this virtuous circle of interest that we will end up winning undoubtedly.
Yeah, absolutely. You deal with a lot of entrepreneurs with big budgets that come here and create businesses with you.
Yeah.
What about the young people that want to be entrepreneurs? What advice do you have for them?
I would have the same advice even for the ones with a lot of money and the wealthy. I would say take your time, because no matter how much money you have or how little money you have, you need to plan things appropriately. And the biggest mistake that I see a lot of people doing is that they don't calculate what is really needed to start a business in Dubai or anywhere around the world. I mean, things take time. For you to really find your edge and your angle and the right partners, and for you really to excel at what you do, you need time. And the biggest mistake that I see is people don't count on that enough, and they feel that they come, they set up, they feel 6 months later they're going to be making money. Well, not really. It doesn't work like this. And you need to really understand what is it that Dubai is able to offer you. Dubai is a great place, but not a great place for everything. Dubai, in a sense, is a small market. I think Dubai itself is about 4 million people, about 6-7 million or 8 million perhaps nowadays with the total UAE market. It's a small market. I mean, Australia itself, how many inhabitants is that?
26 million.
There you go, right? So whatever you're doing and your market is, it's about 6-7 million people, it's totally different if you're aiming at 30 million or 60 million, like in my case in Argentina. So you need to be careful. What's the angle? And I would say, if you have an idea or a business that is using Dubai as a hub for you to launch yourself into the region, Now you're talking. Now you are into a much more interesting sort of approach, because this is when you will win. Like in my case, I was using Dubai as a hub for me becoming this media represent. I would travel around Africa and the Middle East, and they would say, "Oh, Dubai, yeah, you're coming from Dubai," but I had no market for what I was doing in Dubai itself, right? So you need to understand what's your angle and how is it that you're using Dubai for the successful operation that you're looking to launch.
With all the businesses that are coming, what is an industry that you're seeing a lot of? What is you've got entrepreneurs coming to you, setting up businesses. You're in a very unique position actually, because you see, it's a very powerful position actually, because you see all the industries that are coming. What's an industry that you're seeing coming more than the rest? What's a hot topic right now where everybody's setting up this type of company?
It goes in phases.
Okay.
You get different sort of activities, as we call them. When you set up a trade license, you can choose a few activities that you can list in your trade license, and we really look at this and we measure these. It goes in stages, I would say. As I said, 3-4 years ago, up until recently, or even still now, you will get to see a lot of e-commerce companies. Everyone was setting up, some sort of an e-commerce business, whether it was a drop shipping company or something that was being sort of distributed from the UAE. So a lot of e-commerce companies. The last 1 year, we've seen a lot of AI and tech-related companies. A lot of AI companies, or people that are trying to create companies out of the backbone of being presented as an AI-related industry, and we get a lot of questions related to that. Entrepreneurs will come and say, "What's the best license that I need to set up for my AI project?" And in many cases, even the free zones and the jurisdictions need to update themselves, because we didn't have an activity called AI, right? So people wanted to see themselves listed as an AI company. Or Web3, 2-3 years ago or 2 years ago, with the launch of the metaverse, and a lot of metaverse companies, Web3 companies, a lot of crypto companies we've seen in the last 2-3 years, since the boom of crypto maybe 4 years ago. Again, in the case of crypto, it's been a little bit not clear enough. What's the structure? You have all the banks still not being clear whether they should be getting involved in this, touching those crypto guys or not. So even for such activities, it's become a little bit confusing. But as I said, a lot of e-commerce, AI, fintech type of industries, crypto-related companies, and then you get the traditionals. A lot of consulting businesses, marketing agencies. You have a lot of those. The UAE, and particularly Dubai, now is attracting a lot of fund managers, a lot of financial services type of industries. The IFC has grown tremendously, as well as ADGM in Abu Dhabi, in catering for financial services type of companies. People from the Americas and the UK and Europe that are moving their funds to operate from the UAE. So there's really been a boom in so many different type of industries.
If you like this video, consider subscribing. We do weekly podcasts with experts in every industry to help you find direction and guide you on your way. Now let's get back into it. So what's next for Creative Zone?
Oh, that's a really good question. Look, we will continue growing organically the way that we are, through setting up new offices wherever we find there is an opportunity, like we did when we ventured into Qatar and Saudi Arabia. We have, of course, the UAE. We are very optimistic about the future ahead for the country, for the UAE. I wrote an article about a few months ago that talked about how Dubai is going to double its population by 2030. So that gives evidence that there's still a lot of market here for us to explore, and we don't need to reinvent a lot in order to keep on growing as a company. So the country will continue to grow. There's more people coming into the country needing our services and what we do. So it's quite straightforward for us. We grow because the country is growing, and we're really good at what we do, and we honestly have a real sort of objective of wanting to help out. So, and people can see that. So it can't go wrong.
Lorenzo, I appreciate you doing a podcast with us and going for a drive. I've learnt a lot. You're an inspiring CEO.
Thank you.
Something we'd like to finish off every show is we like to ask, and this question is mainly to see who your inspiration and who your influences are. If you could have a dinner party with anybody, dead or alive, who would they be and why? Dead or alive?
My dad.
Okay.
He passed away about 5 years ago, and he was someone very inspirational for me throughout my whole life. And I could see him, through the good and the bad, and how he has always prioritized his family and his work and wanting to do everything for us. So I couldn't think of anyone else that I could be more excited to sit with for another hour or two and just think about our lives and the downturns and the times when things were good. So and to share with him a little bit more of what I'm going through. I'm sure he will be proud to see where we reached and the family I've created. So there's so many positives out of a possible catch up with him like that.
That's beautiful. What's your dad's name?
George.
George.
Spanish, Jorge.
Yeah.
But George. Yeah.
2 more.
2 more people?
3 people. Dead or
3
alive.
people. Oh,
It's
wow.
a dinner party.
Oh, it's a dinner party.
Yeah, it's a dinner party. By the way, I have a very close relationship with my dad as well. He's my everything as well, my inspiration.
Okay.
So I'm not looking forward to that day. You know.
Yeah. No, it's
a bad day.
It's definitely hard.
Yeah.
2 other people that I would bring to a dinner party. All right, the second guy that I could think of choosing is someone, for example, like Elon Musk. I think I have a very big respect for what this young man has achieved in such a short period of time, and he has really challenged all the rules and everything when it comes to launching businesses and running things, how he started with PayPal and then went on to set up so many incredible SpaceX and things that he's getting himself into, apart from Tesla and all these incredible companies. So I like to understand more about this man's brain, and how he makes these decisions, how he runs things on the day-to-day, of things. How do you set up these multi-billion-dollar companies, and how he makes life decisions. Here we are sometimes when we run smaller companies of 100+ people, and sometimes you feel overwhelmed, but what does it take to run a publicly listed company of that size, and spending, and the failure of one rocket not launching properly could cost you millions, and you can still be okay with it, right? So
I think going back to what you said before, it's simplicity. He makes it simple.
Oh my God, yeah.
He thinks it's simple.
Yeah, true.
At that level, he still makes it simple.
Yeah.
One more. So your dad, Elon?
Yeah, I don't know though if they're gonna get along on that. Dinner is gonna be a very awkward. It's a little bit.
Your dad will enjoy that though.
Yeah.
Your dad will enjoy that.
And a second one, I'll choose someone from sports.
Okay.
Maybe Federer. I like to hang out with him. I think he's such a cool dude. Again, such at peace, so comfortable within his own shoes, and what he has achieved, and his persona. I respect him. I remember once I was in Qatar doing some work, and he happened to be having breakfast there in the hotel, because I think it was the Qatar Open. I didn't even know that they were playing, and I went on and I say hi to him, and he was very sweet and very polite. But I never got to speak to him. But he's someone that I would like to, again, understand and learn. And I know in sports they go through a lot of, mental preparation for you to reach those kind of levels. Again, a lot of interesting things that one can learn from such individuals.
I was in Dubai Marina not long ago visiting a friend, and he said to me, the penthouse here Roger Federer owns.
Yeah.
I said, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. He moved here 4 or 5 years ago. He has a place here with like so many other big people in sports and show business. A lot of people are starting to choose Dubai as their home. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me. It's such a
Absolutely.
pleasure to be here with you today.
Thank you.